Hello dear viewers, this video is the first of purely educational videos on this channel, so we are diverging from our usual gaming content because we are also interested in Roman and ancient European history. We will focus on classical Latin and more importantly on ancient people of Gaul this time, especially on their languages and culture. Caius Julius Caesar, Commentarii de Bello Gallico pars prima. Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres, quarum unam incolum Belgae, aliam Aquitani, tertiam qui ipsorum lingua Celtae nostra Galli appellantur, et omnes lingua institutis legibus inter se differunt. Gallos ap Aquitanis garuna flumen, a Belgis matrona et sequana dividit. Orum omnium fortissimi sunt Belgae, propterea quota cultu atque humanitate provinciae longissime absunt, minimeque at eos mercatores saepe comeant, atque at effeminandos animos pertinent important, proximique sunt Germanis, qui transgrenum incolunt, quibuscum continenter bellum gerunt. All Gaul is divided into three parts, one of which the Belgae inhabit, the Aquitani another, those who in their own language are called Celts, in our Gauls the third. All these differ from each other in language, customs and laws. The river Garonne separates the Gauls from the Aquitani, the Marne and the Seine separate them from the Belgae. Of all these, the Belgae are the bravest, because they are furthest from the civilization and refinement of our province, and merchants least frequently resort to them, and import those things which tend to tender the mind, and they are the nearest to the Germans, who dwell beyond the Rhine, with whom they are continually waging war. I read that in classical Latin, which was presumably spoken roughly since 1st century before Christ till the end of 1st century AD. You can notice every C letter is read as K sound, and there are other differences compared to so-called ecclesiastical Latin. I guess classical Latin sounds more natural, doesn't it? Caesar was pronounced as Caesar, which is well preserved till nowadays, for example in German word Kaiser, meaning emperor. What can we say about this excerpt from Caesar's book about Gaul? Well, for me it seems he is quite modern in his comments, as he tries to go almost on a sociological level of analysis, mentioning that the institutions and laws of three different populations inhabiting Gaul are not the same. What do we know about these interesting groups of ancient people with the help of modern archaeology and linguistics? It can be taken as granted that the Aquitani had really a very different language, as Caesar informs us. In fact, their language seems to be very close to the non-Indo-European language of contemporary Basques living across the Pyrenees in northwestern Spain. Let's quickly check some Aquitani words which are preserved in ancient inscriptions. For example, andere means lady or woman, sembe means sun, oxon means wolf, bels means black, oryx means oak tree. About the Belgae, we can see Caesar respected their fortitude and military skills. He somewhat proposes a theory that those tribes who are living farther from civilization and who are in conflicts with their neighbors became more efficient in warfare. It is an interesting theory, but it cannot be exceptionally true, because then it cannot be applied to the Romans themselves. Romans were living in the center of civilized Mediterranean, under the influence of great Etruscan culture, and yet they didn't shrink in military capabilities. Of course, I didn't forget that the Romans had a lot of conflicts, and therefore they had a lot of experience to build on in enhancing their military machine effectiveness. Back to the Belgae. Contemporary. It is well documented that Belgae were heavily influenced by Gaulish culture and language. At least their noblemen used Gaulish names, for example Ambiorix, king of Eburones, who led a revolt against Caesar, had clearly a Gaulish name ending with Rex, which means king. Authors of Civilization 6 computer game were well aware of this, and they promoted Ambiorix to a possible leader of the Gaulish faction, alternatively to Vercingetorix, also a capable leader and strategist from Gallia Celtica, who also faced Caesar during Gallic wars. We already discussed Aquitani language more in detail. What about the Gaulish language? Caesar mentioned it was close to Latin, so Roman soldiers were instructed to speak exclusively Greek to each other to prevent successful Gaulish spying. I believe not many scholars agree with Caesar about a specific issue, even though both Latin and Gaulish are Indo-European languages from so-called Italo-Celtic language group. I guess many Gauls were simply quite fluent in Latin, because Roman merchants frequently visited Gaulish settlements, but without learning Latin with effort, it is highly doubtful native Gauls were able to understand Latin. Well, let's see some examples of Gaulish. Some Gaulish inscriptions survive. Some of them are quite frivolous, like these two. Genetha imi, daga wimpi. This one was son of Spenwell. It is usually translated as I am good, daga and beautiful wimpy girl, Geneta. Even though Gaulish culture can probably make some people prone to boasting a bit. There's another interpretation of this inscription. It seems more logical if it was a gift for an admired woman from a suitor, and it should be translated as Australian scientist Steve Hansen suggests as my good and beautiful girl. So the word imi is considered possessive pronoun in its interpretation. Well, we were speaking about Gaulish female. I was trying to find some scientific facial reconstruction, but I was not successful. In general, of course, we are discussing quite a modern population, which most probably looked very similar to modern people with a lot of variety. Probably slightly less Mediterranean looking on average than contemporary people of France, because the Greek and Roman authors usually described Celts as light-haired and with pale complexity, so I believe we are not far from reality if I show here a composite face of a Welsh woman, which represents a person from a related language group. Composite average face usually looks good because it is more symmetrical than faces of most people, and therefore I am at least not going to insult Gaulish females with this one. Back to inscriptions. Similar enjoyable Gaulish inscription is here. Nata Wimpi Kurmida. Short inscription, but a lot of opinions how to translate it. Very logical seems to be pretty girl, good barley beer. That means a list of treasures which an average Gaulish man like Asterix seeks in Gaul. Kurmi is only barley beer, Cerveza is a wet beer. Linguist Max Nelson made an elaborate article about it, which I cite in the video description below. And what about the Celtic Gauls as people and culture? At the time of Caesar's conquest, they formed an interesting civilization with highly functional agriculture, craftsmanship and trade. They were highly spiritual, also with elaborated astronomy and calendar system, as we can deduce from the remnants of the calendar of Coligny. Priests, called Druids, undergone a long training, and they fulfilled important roles in society, for example as judges, although their importance in the Gaulish society might be already declining before Caesar's conquest. Voted magistrate function called vergobretos became more widespread in some Gaulish tribes, for example Edui. He was empowered with a lot of competencies, but limited, for example in travel. He should not leave tribal area during the time of his rule, so the function of general must be occupied by another person if the tribe is waging war outside one's territory. Gaulish political system seems therefore to be at least partly inspired by Mediterranean democracies. Gauls were excellent artisans and smiths, and their cities called Oppida minted their own currencies. On military level, they were able to equip their noblemen, elite cavalrymen with high-quality chainmail. No wonder expanding Roman state wanted to incorporate this region to control all these riches. Thank you for watching and comment below.